Happy Wisdom Wednesday, everyone, and this week's book of the week is actually my first fiction book that I've reviewed, and it's definitely a classic. A lot of people who are into sci-fi are going to love it, and that is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Now, this book was written back in 1985, and it was given to me by a remarkable individual, somebody who I had the pleasure of reporting to, but also has become a close friend and a mentor, and that's Jeffrey Alvarez. So Jeff is well known here in Silicon Valley as an innovator and problem solver, especially when it comes to medtech and surgical robotics. Brilliant guy, incredibly wonderful to work with, fantastic mentor, good friend, and all-around great guy. And he signed a very nice note here about it. Now, normally I don't write the notes people leave me in gifted books, but Jeff was so profound in what he wrote, I just kind of had to share. And it kind of sets up why I'm going to review this book. So he writes, Omar, we've talked a lot about this book over the past 2 years. It's always been a favorite of mine. The brilliant thing about science fiction is how it can step out of the constraints of today. It can frame an existence where the worst aspects of human behavior are amplified, where technology is unshackled, and where our most puzzling questions are explored. There are deep concepts to explore in Ender's Game, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I have. That's probably the most profound message I've received ever in a gifted book, so thank you, Jeff. And absolutely correct. There are incredibly profound lessons in this book, and there are three in particular I want to point out that has a combination of both leadership and psychology. So let's jump in. Now, originally I started reading this book at night in bed just because they say usually when you go to bed it's good to read fiction. If you read nonfiction, you start to think more about like yourself and career and everything, but I had to stop reading this at nighttime because I started having really weird dreams. Now, this book was written back in 1985, but Orson Scott Card actually predicts a lot of things in the future, including things like the internet, iPads, drone warfare, and many other things. Now, it's based in Earth, and it's around the idea that Earth was once attacked by an alien race, and so the government and military assemble a battle force to fight against these aliens. Now, the book is about Earth being attacked by an alien race, and in order to defend Earth from being obliterated by this alien race, government agencies essentially breed child soldiers into becoming military operants and learn how to function multi-billion-dollar weaponry to fight these aliens. Now, it's really intense, and what I would say is if you happen to watch the movie later on, the movie is terrible compared to this book because the movie is made for kids. This book is really intense because you're essentially recruiting kids and using psychological operations to brainwash them, pit them against each other, and develop them into soldiers of the future. The reason why they pick children is because children are just much, much faster at reaction times and also picking up and figuring out patterns than adults.
Battle groups deploy drones, protect your carriers. Allied, your Squadron 5, engage.
And that's why they recruit children. Now, Ender is a very rare breed, and he ends up becoming very special to the government because he has this rare set of skills, both technical and from a leadership standpoint. Now, he has two indifferent parents that have a really weird relationship with him. He has a brother who's really psychotic and borderline sociopath, and this lovely sister who loves him to death, but he ends up being separated from him. So Ender is put against all kinds of psychological odds and pressure to perform and also figure his way throughout the world. And again, this kid's like 10 years old. So throughout this storyline with Ender moving up into the ranks in these battle schools and essentially taking over as commander and defeating this alien race, don't worry, I'm not going to have any spoilers aside from that. There's a lot more to the storyline than this. There are a few key aspects of his development as a leader psychologically, and more importantly, some theories around leadership strategy I want to point out. So Here are the three I want to jump into. Now, the first lesson is the idea around orientation and alignment. See, when these children go off to battle school, they go into what's called zero gravity battleground, where they're essentially floating in space and they do mock battles with each other. The problem is that most other kids who are in this scenario, they end up orienting up as up and down as down in zero gravity and get very disoriented. Whereas Ender, immediately when he recognized that gravity was no longer a variable, quickly reoriented himself to fit the scenarios that he was in. Right? So no matter what organization you're in, whether it's in medical devices or a tech startup, it's important to really decide where your orientation is within an organization and find a way to align the organization towards a common goal and fit that within the marketplace. Of course, in any startups where you end up becoming a slave to those daily fires and things that are most urgent, it's hyper important, mission critical to orient the entire organization together and not get sidetracked by distractions and make sure that everyone's aligned towards a common goal. All right, so I lied. The second one is going to have a spoiler alert in it. So spoiler alert, if you have not read this book, just stop watching this video right now. So the second concept is that hatred can really be misunderstanding in disguise. Now, towards the end of the book, Ender ends up having to complete one final challenge with his team in the simulation, right? So the whole government organizes this simulation, essentially like a video game, where they have to attack the alien species and beat them in this one final battle.
Oh crap, they're swarming.
So two really intense things happen at the end of this result because Ender leads his team to this remarkable victory. They win, and then you're treated with this just absolute horrific, double punch in the face. The first one is that this wasn't a simulation at all. It was actually the real thing. The adults lied. They essentially weren't in a simulation at all. This was actual war, and they obliterated this alien species. The second gut punch that they realized is that in the middle of the battle, they noticed that the alien species was not attacking them. That almost like they were the opposite of non-hostile. And it turns out that these alien species was never hostile to begin with. And
They're waiting.
Maybe they think we come in peace.
I don't think Mazer intends for us to find a diplomatic solution.
Ender was able to use his mind to communicate with them and realize that this alien species operated as a hive mind. And so when they first encountered Earthlings, they didn't know what to make of them and naturally just attacked them and killed them, not knowing that each human individual was its own entity that could fear, that could have pain and emotions. And upon knowing that, that's when this alien species retreated. They never contacted Earth again because they were horrified about what they did. So unfortunately, the adults and humanity completely misread the intentions of these aliens, taking their initial contact as proof that they were bloodthirsty aliens that were just going to eliminate the Earth, when in fact it was just a complete misunderstanding because they had never encountered humans before. And this is a big point to focus on, is that evolution, when you think about it, for human beings, that is, has really conditioned us for fear. Right? We are psychologically primed from the day that we're born to fear something or someone who's different from us, the other. We're afraid of things that we don't understand. If anything it indicates change or difference, it's a threat to survival. And that's, even though we're living in 2020, our 1,000-year-old brain is still functioning as if it was back in prehistoric times. It still functions this way. And we hate things that are different from us. We hate things that are not like us because, again, it's a threat to survival. But we should not be a slave to evolution. It takes a lot of conscious effort to pay attention to these biases that we have. And as human beings, we have the conscious ability to see past these superficial biases and psychological triggers that we have, to empathize with our fellow men, to find similarities and differences unlike animals. And it really takes a conscious effort to try and love and understand a stranger, but it's definitely worth doing. So it's one thing that you have to keep in mind is that Ender really was in tune with this idea that it's not us versus them, and to try and look for ways to understand. And this leads me to my third point, which is the idea of us versus other. Now, one of the psychological principles that Card explores is this idea of a theory of mind, meaning us versus other. And the idea of us versus other has caused, various wars and divisions throughout human history, from race divisions, culture clashes, political factions. Us versus other has caused these issues. And Card explores this concept as a theory of mind and has Ender with this rare ability, again, Ender being a Turkish name for rare, this rare ability to use his mind to communicate and extend himself to others, in this case, these alien species. Now, the theory of other is really down to two specific things. Number one, the brain's ability to extend itself to understand, empathize, and relate to others' feelings, emotions, desires, fears. And number two, as a means as how empathy works. Now, the us versus them mentality is really something that impedes the imagination of the mind. At its core, the theory of mind requires imagination because, again, you're extending your mind, you're extending your abilities to the other to understand and empathize with them, and more importantly, find win-win situations, bridge gaps. This is something that nobody in this book is able to do, whether it's Ender's parents, the adults running the military program, or even the people on his team. But it was something that Ender was able to do himself, and more importantly, bring others to do the same with him and elevate them as individuals. There's one recurring theme that I see in this book is this constant distortion of communication and misunderstanding between groups, things that Ender, no matter who he was talking to, whether it was a subordinate, a commander, an authority figure, or an alien, he was always able to extend his mind to try and relate and understand from an other person's or other species' perspective. So that's the book of the week. I absolutely love it. Jeff, thank you very much for getting me this book. I really hope someone makes like a rated R version of this movie, because it could be so good between the children running these military campaigns and these psychological operations run by adults. So I understand that the kids' version had to be like that, because that way, not going to make a lot of money if the movie's rated R. But I hope someone makes an adult version of this movie, because this book is fantastic. So that's your book of the week. Happy Wisdom Wednesday, and as always, I'll see you next week. Bye for now.